I think that interiors, headliners, convertible tops, I think they're meant more for, let's say, artsy people or people that don't get real hyper.
Infinite patience.
Patience. I'm more of a mechanical guy. If I put it on and I put it on right, that should be it. It's done. A professional upholsterer may very well put it on, peel it back off, change the position of his hog rings, look at it, okay, I like the way that's straight here, it's straight on top. I'm not really into that. It's like, geez, why wasn't it right the first time? So when you're doing upholstery, it's best if you don't leave it until the night before you're leaving for a convention.
Good advice.
And it's not a quick job, especially if it's your first time. We're going to be doing good to have this ready to go back in the car by 11, and I know I'm talking a lot, but it does take time. But just about anybody can do it, even if you're more mechanically inclined than caring about, geez, how does that look? Can I make it better? Just about anyone can do it. I would say from the feedback, probably 2/3 of our customers do it themselves. Most people are real happy with the results. Almost every week or every month we get people getting back that say they had theirs professionally installed and the place said that it was the best set that they've ever installed. That credit all goes to my dad. He would take two of everything apart. Everything was detailed like he was making a blueprint that was going to be a skyscraper. So he had color codes, he had stitch codes, he had binding codes. He had lengths down to the 16th of an inch so that when we sewed it forever, they would be as close as we could to the factory. More hog rings we flipped. Okay, let's see. I think what we'll do next is see if we can peel this up and over. So if you want to grab that.
It helps if the car's been sitting in 90-degree weather for 5 days.
This is pretty easy right now. Although it's not comfortable, it's much easier when it's warm. The only thing is, I don't suggest putting the new one on if it's too hot, like right out in the sun. People say, well, can I put it right out in the sun? Well, if it gets to 80 to 90 degrees, then it's a little too stretchy. You don't want to be doing this in a garage or a cellar where it's only 50 degrees, though. You want some stretch in that vinyl. And most of us aren't going to be driving in 40 or 50 degree weather anymore anyway. Now, you'll notice the factory put this cotton on. The cotton is just kind of thrown on there. Every seat will vary. So you got this section that's doing nothing. You got a big wad hanging down here that the mice got into. Another wad back there. When they redesigned the seat buns, they realized, you're going to see, getting a seat bun in by itself is hard enough. How GM did this, because this is not glued in, it's just laid in there. So how they got this onto there, got everything pulled together, we're not sure. So when the seat buns were designed, they were designed for not having to put this back in. So when you see the repros seat buns, they won't look exactly like these. The other thing is, don't forget, this thing's been under tension for almost 50 years. So it's going to have squished it down quite a bit. Okay, we still have hog rings galore, but we want to take some time and see just, and can't really tip it enough probably for you to see, but right in here is a bunch of hog rings. That's what pulls the seam down, makes it go down like this, and holds the seat together. But it's also what holds the bun down. They did two things at one time. The hog ring has to go through, the listing has to go through the seat bun, and hopefully you're hitting some wire underneath. And that's not always as easy as you might think, because they weren't terribly accurate as to where the wire was. you would think, okay, the wire should be exactly under there. Sometimes you have to go in a little bit at an angle, because if you're just hogging into the fabric, it won't do anything. It's going to pull right out. We've got the same thing on the other side. We've got the piece of cotton, which we're not going to worry about. A professional upholstery shop may, if he's not happy when he's all done, he may go back and put a little bit of cotton or a little bit of foam in there to get just the look that he wants. So I think you can start clipping the hog rings there again. And I gotta say, so far nobody's in line for detention tonight.
How many hog rings are there?
It varies tremendously. On this one we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 on this. I've seen as many as 12 on a side. 6 is pretty much minimum. You want them pretty much every inch, inch and a half. And we can look back and see where it's rusty. And they kind of average that. Sometimes you'll find 3 hog rings all right together because they realize they didn't hit it. And so they put another one, and that didn't, and then they'll put another one. So if you find 3 of them, 3 all clumped right together, you don't have to do that if you're more skilled than the factory guys were. 1 hog ring clip is going to be plenty.
I got 6 on my side.
Yeah, I had 6 or 7 on my side.
This must have been a morning job.
Okay, so now you'll notice we're finally off except for the very back. This is the part that I consider somewhat critical, that we know exactly where the clips were. And they will be somewhere right across this area. And I've never been able to determine specifically whether or not they first clipped a little bit for the bun and then did the seat. It always appears to us as though they did them both at the same time. We got another wire that went right through here, and generally slightly, well, this one's the same. Mine was off by ½ an inch, so I don't really think it matters which is which. At this point, free and clear, okay?
Where
Believe me, it's gonna, yeah.
Where was the second wire, please? I couldn't see.
The second wire was right at the back end of the seat inside this listing.
Okay, thank you.
And something as mundane as that Osnaburg material, we have to buy, I think it's 6,000 yards of that, and we send it out to get it dyed so we can match the color as close as possible. A lot of the seats you buy for full-size Chevys, Chevy 2s and things, the companies don't bother with that. They use whatever they can get, and they figure it doesn't matter, it doesn't show. We've always tried to keep it as best we can. A lot of this old material, Osnaburg material, some of the duck material, nobody uses it anymore, so it's very, very hard to find it. There's just no places left that can even make it anymore. Okay. And we still got, did you get all your clips out?
Yeah.
Again, I'm never quite sure. I think they, and it would vary from seat to seat, but this seat very definitely went along.
It almost looks like they clipped before
Yeah.
they put.
This one, they put at least 4 or 5 on either side before they even put the
Just the whole
seat
front.
cover. The 65 that I just took off mine, which I know is an original factory seat, there were no extra clips. That guy did everything at one time, probably gave him enough time to go have a cigarette.
So in this case, they're hooking through the foam into a wire.
Yeah,
Okay.
hopefully we'll be able to show you that wire, or
You know, and you can feel the wires, I think, pretty good.
Okay.
I mean,
okay, that's good enough for now. Now, we still aren't done with hog ring clips, because the seat bun has additional material underneath it. And for this material, they didn't bother putting any wires in it. So they just pulled this material and clipped it. So now, we've got all these clips that are actually pulling the seat bun on that we've got to remove. And these clips are just kind of going into the seat springs wherever they felt that it pulled it the right amount and they could hit a spring, then they would do it. This is when I usually call Joan up for help and then say, oh, I forgot, I got to call back to the business. She falls for it. Or she doesn't, she's just knowing that she's not going to get away with it.
I got about 10 on my side.
Again, the thing that's pretty good about it is you can always look back to your old one, and because they rust, you can see where they were, plus you got holes there. The harder thing is where were they attached to the seat.
And that's just a bonded fabric to the foam?
Yeah, it's just attached, glued on. Now we're just zipping right along, but before we can put the seat on, we have got to make sure that we get rid of every one of these pieces that we've just been snapping and leaving on. They've got to all come off before we can actually start putting stuff back in. Almost all our material still comes from a company called Hart's in Massachusetts. You may have heard of Hart's top material, which was used back in the teens and the 20s. It's the same company that made that. They're still in business. They're still in Massachusetts. And the reason we're willing to pay upwards of 80% more for their vinyl, and in some cases we're paying 100 to 125% more than what we could out of China. The vinyl material, unless you know super high quality vinyl companies in China, which I'm sure they have, but most of the upholstery guys want the cheapest they can get. So they're getting it for maybe $3 to $5 a yard. I'm paying upwards of $15 a yard, which doesn't sound bad, but my minimum order is 1,000 yards and they prefer 2,000 yards. So you multiply 2,000 times $15 times, I think we're close to 52 colors of vinyl. You start to push $500,000 worth of fabric. That's, by the time we throw in headliner and everything else. We have only one or two that we absolutely have to get overseas, and that's a color matching situation. Fewer car companies are using vinyl, and therefore, along with all the environmental changes, they've had to change how they've made vinyl at least 3 times that I know of since the 60s, and probably more. It's just like paint. You say, well, why can't you match this exactly? They don't have the tints anymore. And it's the same with vinyl. Vinyl, they take all this stuff, they mix it all up, throw in the coloring, mix it all up. It's still kind of a semi-solid. And then they've got to squeeze that under rollers to that fabric backing. And the fabric backing is very critical too. We have to specify to them which type of fabric do we want and which way do we want it running in the vinyl. Because most of the overseas vinyls will stretch in both directions. You don't want it stretching in both directions. When we cut each piece for this bucket seat, the people have to make sure that they're cutting it in either the stretched or non-stretched direction. And if you've got vinyl that stretches in both directions, and you put it on, it's just going to be stretching and stretching. They designed the whole seat to only stretch in the directions that GM thought that they should stretch. And so each piece that we cut, has to be sewn in the correct stretch direction. And that's something we have to remind them every time, even though all they make is vinyl. Number one, we need the color to match. Number two, we need the correct backing. And I've got at the business charts from computers with spectrography whatamajiggers that show me that this color is an exact match. And you can look at it under fluorescent lights, daylights, shadow lights. And every single one of you would say, that's a lousy match. But the company will point to their computer printout and say, no, perfect match. So, did we do it?
I think I had that side completely undone.
I've got a couple still. Now we can fold this back a little bit, and now I can still see that there's clips that I could not see up above. Oh, we're not doing bad. If you got any questions, yell them out.
I'm surprised that's as good as it is. 50 years old.
Even if the foam looks like it's in pretty good shape, like this one, now that we do it like this, you can see it's really starting to crack, and it has no body at all. The other problem is, I've got a 64 with the original factory interior. I hate to take it off, but the stuff's getting so crumbly that every time I get in my car, there's foam crumbs all over the car. So that's why, if you're going to go to the trouble, I know the buns are expensive. We always argue with the manufacturer. But at this point, you really want new buns. At this point, we can't do anything for the rear seats. The companies that I get that will do the rear seats, their things are like bricks. And there's only the one manufacturer that I've found that makes them that has the feel of the original and is soft enough and yet isn't too soft. Now, if we compare these, and this is what sometimes the upholstery shops say to us, I think you can see these kind of come out to a point on both sides, and these are perfectly rounded. So some customers will look at it and say, geez, it doesn't match the original at all. Once we get done, this stuff is so soft, it's just going to push back, and any excess that's here is going to help us fill out that seat so it looks nice and full. So we don't really have to worry about that. If we're at all good, we're going to have something that's going to satisfy this guy by the time